And welcome back to Thank You for Your Attention. I'm Jason Beck. And for this week's episode, we have Jeff Fajans joining us. Jeff is a creative badass, and he helps create creative badasses. He's a creative executive coach. He's got a PhD in positive organizational psychology, and he helps leaders get unstuck, or entrepreneurs or any sort of person get unstuck in their journey to creativity, create consistent momentum on their creative projects, experience more flow in their work, and help design goals in a way that are actually attainable and improve you. It's an excellent conversation. We talk about what it means to be creative, how to be creative. Is there such a thing as a creative person and a not creative person? We have some fun talking about some jokes here and there. It's overall good time. I think you'll learn a whole lot about creativity in this episode. Hope you enjoy it. And if you like it, hit the subscribe button, share it with a friend or a family member or an enemy. Maybe that too. Enjoy. And as always, we're sponsored by Larry H. Parker. That's Southern California's #1 automobile accident law firm. They've been successful in 95% of their cases. They'll fight for you.
We'll fight for you.
Hablamos español.
Well, Jeff, thanks for hopping on, man, and joining the podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, how are things going with your business? And I see your Instagram is going off. You are posting on the reg, good content, fun content. Are you seeing results from that?
Yeah, thanks for asking. Yeah, so my business is growing. It's going well. It's gone through a lot of changes this past year, where transitioned from like an internal coach and consultant role at a creative marketing agency into doing my own coaching with creative entrepreneurs and leaders around the world, doing all sorts of crazy stuff like writing feature films or building apps, writing books, just anyone kind of in the creative industry, people that identify as creative. That's kind of my ideal client, someone trying to do something big. And yeah, so that's been a lot of fun, just learning what people are up to during the pandemic, how they're focusing their time and attention, and how that's shifted and why. You know, I see a lot of people shifting into more purposeful, meaningful, authentic work after this pandemic shift, especially like having a really reflective moment and saying, hey, I have some really big ideas that are important to me and I want to bring them to life. But as you know, like just creative work, whether you're doing a dissertation or starting a business or a podcast, it's pretty crazy. There's a lot of uncertainty, there's a lot of complexity, and a lot of times you just get stuck and you don't really know how to navigate that creative process or build that momentum or find that flow all the time. So part of what I focus on doing with my clients is that, like helping them get unstuck, finding more flow, creating systems and habits that kind of facilitate consistent momentum. And really, like I'm there as like a thought partner to help them navigate their creative process and bring their ideas to life. And yeah, so it's been fun shifting and really doubling down on that, because I think a while ago, before, like when I started the PhD program at Claremont, that was kind of my purpose and intention going into the program. And, you know, life kind of takes you down different journeys. And, you know, I was kind of doing that in my internal roles, but it wasn't as pure, wasn't as authentic as I kind of envisioned it originally. And so it's really great to kind of come back to that. And yeah, my Instagram, actually, I hated social media for so long.
To say, man, it's a hard trap to get into, right?
Yeah,
like,
but
do you feel the trap of the dopamine drip?
I don't necessarily. Just for me, like I've always kind of avoided social media a bit and kind of just been on the down low with it, other than LinkedIn, just kind of connecting one-on-one with people. But like this year, you know, as I'm thinking about growing my business, it's like, okay, I gotta be visible out there. I gotta connect with my people, my audience. And so like for me, like it really came down to a couple things. Really, I just kind of took the pressure off, kind of like me, like,
Yeah.
okay, how are people gonna think of me? And I'm just trying to think of it as let me just put stuff out there and see if it resonates or helps someone. Right? Like if it helps one person, great. If it brings a connection, creates a connection, or inspires someone, even if it's just one person, that's great. And then two, like I joined, like I'm kind of in this social media accountability thing with these other coaches, and so I started that January, and basically it's like just post something once a day, every weekday, then comment and share and like and love or clap, whatever social media thing you're on, like three other people in that group.
Okay,
So
so
yeah, so
you're all
that's been really
together with
helpful.
it.
So
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
yeah, so the accountability is helpful. So it's really just kind of like just got to get something out there. Just try to keep it simple. Just repurposing some stuff I've done in the past into social media
Yeah.
things, and like the third thing, like I'm just trying to make it a learning experience for myself too. Like just learning Canva or Canvas or whatever it's called. Just trying to be creative in that outlet too. Just see what resonates and what doesn't, and just kind of experiment with it. So
Yeah, it's a weird push and pull for me because it's like I love to use it as a creative outlet. It can be like a cork board in the hallway that people pass and go, "Oh, that's kind of cool."
yeah,
And it also can be this ego inflating comparison bias machine
yeah,
that makes the, I
yep,
mean, I know you have some experience with mindfulness, going on your retreat and stuff.
yeah.
Yeah, it can make the mind go wild. And I'm not sure how much the brain has the capacity to defend against that, even in social media life.
Yeah, yeah, no, I agree. I mean, it is. I was listening to the Jeremy Hunter episode, and you guys, you and him, your conversation, which was really awesome. And yeah, you guys kind of touch upon that. It was interesting how he was talking about curiosity and kind of manipulating curiosity in the social
Yeah.
media realm. Yeah, it definitely can be a big kind of time suck and just a big comparison suck that can really, like I've seen it in some of the clients I've worked in, just
Yeah.
that comparison, right? They get on there, they're trying to write a feature film and they see, JJ Abrams, 2 million followers, 20 million likes, 20
Yeah.
movies, coming out, something else. And
Lost. Great
they're like,
series.
I'm just trying, yeah. Yeah. And they're just like, I'm just trying to get my first thing made, or I'm just trying to get funding for this. Like, it really can put people in a downward spiral for sure, and just kind of trigger that. Am I good enough? Am I an imposter?
Yeah.
Um,
But when we create more than we consume on social media, I think that's the trick. That's
yeah,
something I've been trying to play with is like, can I create more content than I consume?
yeah, that's a
Because
good
then
way to do it.
yeah, because then I feel something. You mentioned earlier about your ideal audience, your target
Yeah,
client is someone who
hmm
identifies himself as creative.
yeah,
Um, do you think everyone can be creative or everyone is creative? Or is
yeah.
that
I do.
relegated to those who are, that wear bright colored clothing and funny hats?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So, I think the funny hats are optional.
Yeah.
Certainly, I think it's really about kind of authenticity and expression, and yeah, kind of finding your voice. That's something
Mm.
that's meaningful to you, and getting that out there. I think everyone can be creative for sure. Um, there's different types of creativity you can look at, but I think everyone has the capacity to be creative, but not everyone has that creative confidence or believes it
Mm, mm.
or identifies as a creative. And in some ways, I think that's missed opportunity for a lot of people. But you know, I think everyone can be creative, but they may need to kind of reconceptualize what that means for them.
Yeah, I'm gonna put you on the spot now. What is
Yeah.
creativity?
Well, academia says no.
Oh
We're really,
no, shut off the
yeah,
no, we
yeah,
need
yeah,
academia at least once in this podcast every time.
yeah, exactly. So I mean, creativity to me. So there's, I guess, yeah, I'll break it down in a couple of different ways. Like at its most, like kind of pure essence, creativity, everyday creativity, really is doing something kind of authentically meaningful to you.
Mm.
Kind of owning that and expressing that. So whether that's cooking a recipe or trying out a new class or just doodling in your sketch pad or writing down ideas in your journal or even just kind of thinking about just how you're going to connect with people and do something new or nice for someone, like something that kind of sparks your curiosity or brings some kind of new experience or new value to something. It's kind of how I would think of creativity in its essence. So yeah, like if you're making
Wow.
someone's day, like you're creating a new experience that like didn't exist before. So that's kind of like at its essential way, I would say. But then you can go kind of in deeper levels into what it means to be like a professional creative or
Mm.
kind of a world changing creative. That kind of creativity gets a little more complex, but yeah, that's kind of what I would describe it as in its kind of purest form.
Makes you think about making decisions can even be a creative activity, like
Yeah.
decisions about life.
Oh yeah.
You can be creative with that. And then also like professional creativity reminds me of Stephen Pressfield, whole amateur versus professional, and what does it mean to be a professional? Like, I think everyone can be a professional creative in
Yep.
their own discipline, whatever their discipline is. And that the root of it, right, is create, is
Yep.
putting action into the world. And I think
Hmm.
it's a very important facet of human life.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I definitely agree. Like to me, whenever I was at like the lowest points of my life, it was always when, whenever I was stuck in a job, kind of before grad school days, I was in a job. Kind of landed in a sales job. I was a young guy. I was doing marketing and stuff before that, which was a little more creative. I was doing workshops. I liked that. But then I got in this trap of, hey, I want to make more money. I want to do this and that. Sales will be a good skill to learn. I had kind of like this connection through my mom's gym friend. And so I got in this sales job, but and I learned a lot. And I'm glad I went through it because it kind of was a transformative experience for me. But like, I hated that job because I couldn't be creative. My boss was like, it's this way or the highway. Like,
Mhm.
don't deviate. Don't try to do it your own way. Don't find your own nuances to it. Follow the script, do this, do that. And yeah, and there was no psychological safety, flipping the academic word. But yeah, so I mean, at that time, like I couldn't really be creative, and I was spending most of my time and attention at work doing these things that I couldn't really bring that to
It was
what I was doing.
mechanistic.
So that, yeah, and so like the quality of my experience was very low at that time, and but it got to a low point, but luckily that kind of gave me the insight that hey, creativity is such a meaningful and important part of my life. Like I have to have that in whatever I do, and if I can design my experiences to do more of that, regardless of whatever else is happening, I'm gonna feel just much more fulfilled. And so I
Yeah.
think, and
Yeah.
I've seen that with other people too. Like people light up when they're creating something, when they're sharing a new idea, when someone says, "Hey, that's a great idea. You should go for it." When you do a presentation and people clap for it, people download your podcasts. But even just for like yourself, like it feels good to get your ideas out there. Like you're contributing something. You're taking something from just a concept to something more real, or some real experience, and it's just intrinsically motivating. It's that kind of pure flow experience if you can really tap into it.
You mentioned like authentic expression, and being authentic feels very rewarding, to
Yeah,
let the guard down. And creativity is like the authentic expression that you mentioned is like this mechanism that is like an outcome also of when you are
yeah,
creative. Being
yeah,
authentic is very important to that process, huh? Because it's like I can't. I mean,
yeah,
even if I copy someone's work, even if I try to cover a song, if I can do it in my own version, the
yep,
most, that's when you hit the pinnacle of creativity.
yeah, exactly. That's a good example. Just yeah, kind of doing a cover song but adding your own kind of twist to it, right? Like that's fun. It's exciting. You're like, hey, I played this chord instead of that chord and it sounded really cool. Oh, nice. I thought of that. Really cool. Like, what else can I think of? Right. And it just, if you can write it out, then it's just like, yeah, it can just be a really rewarding string of experiences.
Yeah, you stop being a bypasser to life. Start being an
Yeah.
actor. You're a main character,
Yeah.
not a side character.
Exactly. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
like to get into something practical, let's say that someone's listening and is like, I'm not creative. That they're very strong on that. I'm not a creative person.
Yeah.
What would you suggest are the first steps to getting
Sure.
them to live that authentic, meaningful path towards creativity?
Sure. So, one, I would challenge them on that statement, right? Like, has
Good.
there ever been a time in their life where they did something creative, like even just one time? Like, did they give a presentation at work? Did they tried something new, or did they try a new recipe? Did they, you know, try a new workout class? To something that was new to them that they were curious about. That they had a curiosity, then they followed it, and then they acted on it. So I would challenge them on that to really kind of reflect on that statement, because I would bet there's at least something that stood out, right? It could even be just like someone had a creative way to propose to their wife, right? Something, whatever, right? So I would encourage them to challenge that statement. But then too, like I would ask them, you know, like tell me what are you curious about? Like what's got your interest lately? What's got your attention lately? That's not something that you have to do or you feel like you should do, but something you want to do, right? Like I think that language in your head, if you find yourself saying, I want to do this, I want to do that, versus I have to do this or I should do this, those are little clues that you can follow to bring more creativity into your life, bring more flow into your life. And so, yeah, I would encourage like to ask yourself if you do find those things, those little clues, go deeper into it. Like, how can I expand this? How can I get out of my comfort zone a little bit with this? What would be that next little small step I can take to kind of grow in that space?
I've heard before that we're born with creativity, or we're born with curiosity at least,
Yeah,
curious mindset, and then some people lose it. Why do you think
yeah,
we lose that curiosity as we grow older? Like what impedes curiosity?
yeah. So I think a lot of it is you know, just kind of the social systems we grew up in a bit. Some schools, some teachers may hinder that, and it may not even be their fault. It may just be how the school system is set up
Mm,
with, standardized testing, just some of that stuff. But also, I think, let's see, yeah, I think a lot of it kind of comes down to also just as we grow, we get more social awareness as well. We see things happen to us where we may get rejected in some way or dismissed or kind of isolated or feel like we're not belonging in a group in
hmm,
some way early in childhood or at school or in your teenage years. And so these different little moments can condition us to kind of play it safer or to kind of fit in more or
play
seek
it
out
safe.
approval. And it's a complicated thing because our biology and our psychology is set up in a lot of conflicting ways, right? Like, so we want to belong to a group and be approved and accepted, but also we want to express our individuality and do new things and, you know, just be authentic and try crazy stuff, bring our ideas to life. But those are kind of some ideas that are kind of contrasting each other in some ways. So,
Mm-hmm.
what's stronger in what moment and what situation? So it is kind of uh, kind of a paradoxical thing and a hard thing to navigate. And that's why a lot of people get stuck too. Like sometimes they have this big idea, but for some reason, how they've designed their life and surrounded, themselves with certain people, it's hard to kind of break past those beliefs or experiences and bring out that side. I think both are needed. Like you do, like at the highest levels of creativity, you do need some kind of acceptance into a social system, or there needs to be some value for others, kind of at those professional or world changing levels of creativity. So it's just kind of a delicate balance. It's
Yeah,
just
you
it's
need to
just
have
kind of
that
hard.
safety of a secure
Yeah,
base, but you also need to be able to explore.
exactly,
Otherwise, you're not going to be
exactly.
able to grow. Something that came up to my mind was I remember in fourth grade, I wrote this huge speech to run for like vice president or something of
Oh
my
yeah.
grade, and I forgot my poster that has like my
Yeah.
advertisement at home. And the teacher goes,
Mm.
"Sorry, you can't do it." And my mom came in over after school and I was like, "Look, I have it, I promise." He's like, "You missed the deadline." And I was like, "Please, like I memorized my speech, this whole thing." He's like, "You memorized your speech? Okay, tell it to me." And so I had this whole speech that was like my brother helped me write. It was so dumb. Like I had so many things like, "Hi, I'm Jason Beck. You may remember me from such places as Little League, Hebrew School, my house." It's like, "Do you want Kobe Bryant as your principal?" It's like,
Yeah.
if I
Sounds
remember
awesome.
parts of this, it's funny. And then I remember this whole thing. It's pretty corny and but I guess good for a fourth grader
Yeah.
and pretty good for a fourth grader. And at the end of it, he goes, "Great job! Like you did memorize it. Now you don't need to say it to the class when you're on stage because you missed the deadline." And I was like,
Oh,
"Oh, dude, you just zinged me hard,
yeah.
roasted as
That
a fourth
sucks.
grader." And
Yeah.
so I think that was a moment that probably made me feel a little uninclined to go for it. And it wasn't
Sure.
until I came to CGU actually,
Really.
where I
Yeah.
joined improv,
Okay.
which I almost didn't even do the improv audition. She had an
Yeah.
audition in ACB at the building.
Oh,
I almost didn't do it because I was scared,
yeah.
but I pushed myself to do it, and that unlocked this whole other side that
Yeah.
has been dormant in many
Nice.
ways.
Yeah.
I mean, there are a lot of things leading up to it. Like I took a lot of public speaking classes in undergrad to kind of push back this fear I have, trembling fear of
Yeah.
that
Yep.
stuff, which is an art form and creative art form in itself. But there's things like that moments to push back, to have pivotal
Yeah.
experiences to break those
Agreed.
obstacles.
Yeah, and that's a great example. Yeah, I mean, like what a missed opportunity that teacher could have had to like really boost your creative confidence, right? And encourage you to keep going with it. It sounds like it was an awesome speech, even for like a,
Awesome speech.
you know,
But
well,
did I
someone older than
that
that. But
origin? Do we need that origin story?
I think that's a good question. And what I would say is it's another thing to kind of ask someone who's, if you say, hey, I'm not a creative person, I think exploring these origin stories or these different fears or, you know, feelings of discomfort or anxiety or overwhelm, like those are good, also good clues to
Yeah.
explore. Like for you, like if you stayed hesitant with this and kind of stayed in your fear and didn't try out for improv, like you probably wouldn't have this podcast. You've developed a lot of skills from that, public speaking and conversational skills and just creative skills that can apply to all sorts of stuff, like anything you're going to do. And now, like even just doing that, like you have that creative confidence. That you've overcome that fear. You can do it again, right? So, yeah, to tell like for other people, yeah, what is that? Like, do you have a
Mm,
fear of public speaking or presenting? Do you have a fear with numbers or art or whatever? But if there's that fear, but also like a little bit of curiosity or I wish I could do this there, like that's a good indicator to explore and take small steps, dive into that. Or I mean, yeah, or you could just dive head on into that and
mm,
kind of thing. But like usually like exploring that, taking small steps, like doing something and doing something a little bit bigger, that's a really great way to bring more creativity in your life and kind of transform your identity over time. That creative confidence of going from someone that's I'm not a creative person into yeah, I'm pretty creative. Yeah, I can do creative stuff and yeah, I am a creative person. I can
yeah.
handle any problem in my life because I have those skills to overcome things and deal with the ambiguity and uncertainty and fear and do it anyways.
Makes me think of like figuring out the first 10 minutes of your superhero movie.
Yeah,
Like very important because like the first 10 minutes is
that's
like
cool.
when the origin, right, is like the person doesn't trust anyone anymore,
Yeah,
or
yeah,
I used to use my powers, or whatever it is,
yeah, for
um,
sure.
that's like a part of this, and then you can kind of build off of that and have that journey to discover it again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So speaking of improv, one thing I learned in that whole journey of doing improv comedy and stuff, this idea of silence is so needed
Hmm.
in
Yeah,
banter and creating a scene and doing comedic theatrical work. And it led me to this idea, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this about how like boredom can create
yeah,
creativity,
yeah.
and we need more boredom.
Definitely, definitely. Yeah, like boredom definitely is good for creativity. You need that silence. Like I'm gonna butcher the quote, but Miles Davis said something like, "Music is what happens in between the notes." I
Yeah.
don't know if that's exact, but that really resonated with me, and it's true, right? Like I'm a guitar player, and so when I was learning guitar, like that kind of concept really resonated with me. Like some of my favorite guitar players were the ones like BB King or Jimi Hendrix or Stevie Ray Vaughan that could just play like a note, like so soulfully, just in the right time and so simply, but then and kind of like back off it and just wait and then just be like, whoa, what's gonna happen next? It's like wow, like that was a powerful note versus, there's some guitar players out there, they're like, just like the whole song. And that's like super technically impressive and creative too. But and the stuff like I couldn't do or, you know, I didn't think I could do. And and I think there's a time and place for that, but it really, yeah, that silence is so important because it gives possibility,
Yeah.
and it opens up your imagination rather than just being stimulated. Like here's this stuff. Like it creates that space for applying your attention in a new way or unique way to create a new possibility or do nothing even. Maybe that's the right move. But music, yeah, like that was always the thing. And then you just need boredom too to like see what your mind's doing and just kind of what ideas pop up from it,
Yeah, it's
right?
amazing. It just comes up. It just comes up on its own when you just sit there and the
Yeah,
water gets still enough.
yeah,
But with so many different outlets to get stimulus and information and just
yeah,
interact, it's hard to activate that Daniel Kahneman, the type 2 thinking, which is like
yep,
thinking that happens in the back of your mind. I feel like that can
yeah,
get just crowded and noisy.
sure, definitely. And that's something too, like something that, yeah, there's, just a pretty intense hustle culture, right? Like grind it out, don't sleep, keep going. If you're not, you're a loser. Um, you're never going to be successful. And there's times to hustle and grind it out and go hardcore, but in creative work, especially, like there's this thing that it's not really talked about much, but incubation. So it's kind of related to boredom or silence in a lot of ways, but it's really you need to detach from kind of the really focused, concentrated work you're doing to kind of let your ideas incubate and kind of get in that subconscious, unconscious part of your brain that's actually a lot better at handling complex information and combining things in new ways and figuring stuff out than if you were just going to apply just your very conscious laser like attention to it. So like the highest levels of creativity, I mean, that's why you kind of hear about these aha moments, right? So like what's happening before those, it's like these creatives, they're incubating on their ideas in some way. They're taking breaks, they're going out for walks, they're skiing or snowboarding, they're driving. It can happen anywhere, but I think it's a really useful kind of shift, and it can be really helpful for like your creative productivity. Whenever you're handling complicated stuff and you're not really sure, you feel stuck, to trust kind of that subconscious, unconscious mind to figure things out, like to process that information. Because if you are exhausted and you're stuck and you're just trying to just go, 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 like the answer isn't to keep going. Like you need to detach from that and just do something else. And your mind, your subconscious mind, is going to figure that out. It sounds kind of woo woo, but it's actually there's some good research on it as well, kind of from a neuroscience perspective. That I don't remember the citations for or anything, but
Oh, come on. This is
but
like your oral examination. You need to know
yeah,
citation. Yeah.
exactly. So, but yeah, I think kind of touches on your point of silence
Yeah.
and
You
just
also
kind of
mentioned like physical work. So like skiing,
yeah,
snowboarding, even driving. You're doing a physical activity with some percentage of your attention, doing a
yeah,
routine activity.
it helps.
Or like right now, what we've been doing at our house is we've been farming and gardening a lot.
Oh
So we're
yeah,
planting a
yeah,
lot of like squash and tomatoes and peppers and cucumbers and stuff like that. And that's also very similar to like all I have to
yeah,
do is just I have a very simple, straightforward thing to do
yep,
is to take out weeds. And maybe even that's like taking the weeds out of my brain when I do it.
could be,
Or some people
yeah,
say when they're cleaning dishes that that's also
yeah,
therapeutic because
yep,
very straightforward, simple. Is it also reflected back to you're cleaning the muck off of your brain too? Woo woo, no citations. So it's a
yeah,
different woo woo. But again,
yeah,
those very simple activities can generate some ideas, but you have to also have that silence in there too. You can't be
yeah,
you
exactly,
can't be watching TV and doing this,
yep.
right?
Yeah, no, that's a good idea. I mean, those are good examples because, yeah, my own experience is something physical like that, not like doing some super intense workout, but just something kind of relaxing or easy, but some physicality with it. Um, like a walk or doing the dishes or gardening or cleaning, building something from IKEA or something like that. Those like you get a lot of good ideas. Like if you're putting in the focus work consistently, eh, like you're gonna get a lot of really great ideas and solutions to your like most complex problems.
To
In
anything.
those, yeah, to anything in those moments where you detach from it. And yeah, there's something about some kind of subtle movements where, or if the activity is just like just it has to be different from kind of your main thing, right? Like if you're doing your dissertation, switching to a different activity, a different research paper is not going to do the trick. But if you switch to like gardening, then that could really be effective.
Yeah, we need to change hustle culture to include like going for an hour walk as part of hustling.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like oh, I'm on that hustle game, I just locked myself in a bedroom and there's nothing in here. It's just me.
Yeah.
And a whiteboard or a
Nice.
canvas.
Yeah.
That's a challenge there. Something's going
Yeah.
to get created,
Yeah.
even the person who says they're the most uncreative person, if you lock them in a room for a day with a giant canvas and paint, something's going to get on that canvas.
Yeah. For sure. Definitely.
That's a great intervention for people.
Yeah. You should try it out. You should test
It's
it
like an
out.
escape room, but creative,
Yeah, man.
like a
You should test it
creativity
out.
escape room. Yeah. I don't
I
know
like that.
anyone who would be sick enough to want to just be locked in a room with a canvas and paint willfully. Like they'll pay to do that when they can do it
Yeah.
themselves, of course. Yeah. It's a
Yeah.
good
Well, yeah, man. I
strategy.
think you should look into that.
Hmm.
Just put a lot of like sound diffusers and sound absorption stuff in there too. Just make it feel a little more creative or just, but the white space, yeah, I think that's a cool idea to explore.
Yeah. Yeah. Switching a little bit to Claremont Graduate University in our time studying positive psychology. Um, I went to CGU, kind of wanting to figure out what happiness is. I think
Yeah.
everyone low key does. They say things like, "Oh, I want to bring well being into the workplace." But I think down deep, it's like I want to understand what it means to live a happy life.
Yeah.
A lot
Mm-hmm.
of people who go to positive psychology. As
Yep.
somebody who's been out of grad school now, you succeeded, you got the PhD,
Yeah.
the perseverance, you got it.
Yeah.
What are your takeaways now after studying positive psych for so many years?
Yeah.
What has
Oh
what's
man,
left on you, right?
you're opening up a lot of stuff. Yeah.
Like,
I was, yeah,
what do you still think of it now, right? We have one idea going in, and now there's another idea going out, which is different.
yeah, I think the idea and the essence of positive psychology is still really important, still really needed, and still,
You're still
im-
okay with it?
yeah, still impactful. I think it's, yeah, I mean, so my takeaways, I mean, my research, my interest in positive psychology was more around like creativity and flow, and kind of bringing that to the workplace. No, just just unlocking that for myself. Yeah, to be honest, like I got into flow and creativity stuff, meditation and mindfulness a long time ago, even before grad school, because I was trying to be like the best guitar player, musician I could be. I was like trying to get that edge and have better jam sessions and play sweeter solos and come up with better songs and just do cool stuff on with guitar and music. And so that kind of led me down um, to all this mindfulness and meditation and flow and creativity and positive psychology. But like I always did feel that happiness was important. So yeah, it was just kind of really resonated with me for my own kind of personal journey, but also to spread the message out into the world. I
Yeah.
really liked, I mean, the research I gravitated towards was always more practical and more along those lines and less about how to be happy or like or positive emotions, this or that. Like to me, it was always more about how do you bring more flow, how do you find more meaning, how do
Hmm.
you do hard stuff, overcome hard stuff, like and persevere. How do you apply that to kind of bring out the best, activate people's strengths? So I think it still really resonates, and I apply it. Like when in my internal rules, when I was doing learning and organization development, I brought a lot of that with me.
Hmm.
Um, I guess the things that also I learned just from it were just, yeah, kind of perseverance and grit and just kind of navigating that own
Yeah, that's the dissertation. That's the
rate
whole
of progress.
PhD
The
thing.
dissertation, like, start out with like this really grand vision and it's really pure and authentic. And then you're like, this is what I want to do. This is my purpose. This is what I'm going to say. And then you get all the feedback and just go through the process and everything else is happening in your life. And you're just, yeah, I mean, it's
You're
just
like,
good.
get out, like
Yeah.
get me
Yeah. You kind
out.
of get stuck and then you kind of have to motivate yourself and find habits and systems to kind of get it out there. So yeah, but it's a good experience, a good kind of transformation, building those skills on getting unstuck, getting feedback, kind of navigating, social system or, how to work best with your advisor or boss and just getting done, right? Because then you also realize too, like, this dissertation isn't going to necessarily define me. There's more I'm going to do after this. It's going to be better. It's going to be different. Like this is just kind of a milestone. Like don't put so much pressure on it. So I mean, it's all like really good lessons. But then also
Yeah.
just from a practical standpoint, from like a coach or consultant kind of organizational psychology perspective, I think you do learn a lot too once you get out there, not to be so theoretical and academic and just you got to translate that. You got to
Yeah, and
simplify it.
that's the thing that can happen when you're too much into the PhD mode is the you lose the Rosetta Stone to translate
Yeah.
it. And you get yeah, it is a wonderful activity of getting stuck and unstuck over and over again throughout graduate school. That's like
Yeah.
it's not a matter of intelligence. It's a matter of
Yeah.
creatively unsticking to
Yep.
things because there's
Exactly.
man that feeling of working hard on a paper with ideas. And as a graduate student, I care so much about my fragile ideas.
Yeah.
And then you get feedback and it's like covered in feedback on Google Docs, right? You're just like,
Yeah.
it triggers
It
these
is.
threat responses. It's such a fascinating experience mentally
Yep.
to see like how reality gets formed in response to the idea threatens, like the threatening of one's
Yep.
ideas.
Yeah. Yeah. And so like it's really tough. I mean it's because yeah, I mean it's just kind of like hopefully like one learns that balance of kind of being super passionate and attached, but also being very objective and detached, right? And kind of separating your identity from that idea or that one idea,
Yeah.
not making it too big of a thing where it's just, if you get bad feedback on it, it's like, I'm a bad person, I'm not good enough. It's hard. I mean, the creative process is crazy, but like if you can do something big like a dissertation or start a business or build an app, write a book, whatever it is to you, like if you can do that, if you can push yourself to kind of move from concept to completion, like it's just a journey that's going to transform you and it's going to help you in whatever you do in your life. And it doesn't have to be the same thing you do there, like you're not stuck in your identity. Like it can always evolve and change. You learn from it. You do something else that feels more authentic or more inspiring, but there is something to towards like pushing through when you do feel stuck and you don't feel passionate about it and you don't feel creative about it. Instead of, like, a lot of people, they use that as a sign, like, oh, this must not be what
Oh,
my
not
purpose
important.
is. Yeah, like, oh, this
Yeah.
this isn't my life purpose or my passion after all. Let me go chase this other kind of thing that makes me feel good. And so there's like this misconception that creativity is always positive. Like, it's always a positive feeling. A lot of it can be, but there's always, like, the whole creative process. There's always parts that just feel like shit, and you just you're just like, damn, why am I doing this?
Yeah.
Don't want to do it.
But that's just as important as the moments of being in flow and
Yeah,
writing.
exactly.
That moment, how we relate to that moment, that's just as important.
Exactly. Yeah, if not more important, because yeah, I mean, it's always going to happen no matter how much you know about a subject or how excited you are about something. There's always going to be something either internally or externally that's going to kind of get you stuck, right? Or kind of throw a loop in your plans, and it's not going to feel fun. It's going to feel like a grind in some parts, like part of the dissertation, or you're just cleaning data for like 3 hours on Excel. That's not what you got into it for. Part of a business is you're emailing people, you're sending out messages, you're formatting some kind of something on your Instagram. Something,
It's
you're
not
just like,
working correctly and you can't get it
this takes forever.
symmetrical.
Like,
Yeah.
this doesn't, but you got to do it. You just got to push through it. But it's all about that momentum and just creating that creative confidence in yourself that I can do this, I'm going to do it, and just being committed and just kind of like seeing it through. That's like really, it's really transformative if you can do that.
Yeah, it sounds like the skill is like flexibility of
Yeah.
zooming in and out. So it's like, can I
Yeah.
zoom all the way in so that data cleaning becomes an art?
Yeah.
Can I do that where I can persevere and push? And then can I zoom way out where I can say this is not that important and I can take the feedback and integrate it and keep
Yeah.
going and
Yep.
really see the bigger picture here of my whole life. There's a lot of different phases of creativity there of going back and
Yeah.
forth in those two things.
Yeah. The zoom in, zoom out, that's a really important skill. And the flexibility is the skill, adaptability. That's, yeah, you gotta think big, you gotta think small, you gotta just kind of see what life throws at you, what your advisor throws at you, what a client throws at you, and then you gotta just like be committed to seeing it through, and just finding a way to make it happen.
Yeah, it's kind of like in the beginning, we were talking about more of the beginner steps to creativity. This seems like more of the intermediate steps of like,
Yeah,
okay, now that you are doing creative work, when you hit that roadblock that will come up, that roadblock is not a sign to stop. That roadblock is a sign to observe
yeah,
and say, okay, how do I relate to that? One writer I've heard has described writing as a writer's block is not something to overcome. Writer's block is writing.
yeah, yep, yeah, yeah. You just gotta find a way sometimes to push through and detach and just kind of focus on just breaking something down small, um, trying to make something more enjoyable. I mean, my belief is like, even the stuff that feels like it sucks, like, you can make that you can't bring in some level of enjoyment or fun to that. And I think it's important. Like you gotta make it easier, you gotta make it more enjoyable, and you gotta get started and you do it. So even something like sending a million messages out, or like that, you can make that more fun. Like you can watch a movie while you're doing that. You can listen to music while you're doing that.
Listen to your favorite album.
And
It's
so
my
now it
go-to.
becomes,
Yeah.
yeah, now it becomes like a pretty cool experience. You know, like, oh, cool, I get to listen to this album for an hour doing this, or I get to watch my favorite show or my favorite movie again doing this.
Yeah, I heard that watching or listening to like a new album is a form of exploration
Yeah,
that's new and can spur, it's a new experience to spur creativity in a new way. But then listening to your favorite one that you've listened over and over again is actually a feeling of safety.
yeah,
And I thought
interesting.
that was such a cool idea that like in moments of anxiety, it's actually
Yeah,
good to listen to the favorite thing that you've listened to a million times.
yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I mean, it's like something of comfort, some familiarity. Yeah, like if I was gonna do, like a lot of times, like something new could also be a little distracting, for me at least. So, but if I'm gonna watch a movie that I've seen before, like yeah, it does kind of provide some level of comfort, some joy, and some nostalgia, perhaps, and then it makes whatever kind of boring or annoying task like actually enjoyable.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
cool. Well, we're probably nearing the end here, and I want to. This is a great, great conversation. In the end, the last thing I want to ask is like, there's so many different strategies to creativity, of course, different methods. What's like a new one that you're working with that's getting you excited these days?
Yeah. So I think to me, what I've seen most helpful for myself and for the people I work with, especially just when times are just crazy like this, is really to focus on momentum and how to create and sustain momentum in whatever you're doing. So what that means to me, I guess it can mean a lot of different things, but really it's like how do you go in to your creative work and the projects you're working on and and just advance that a little bit, create progress every day on it, you know, or just in some consistent rhythm
Mm,
where you do, like when you think about it, it's like, yeah, I'm feeling that progress. I'm making, I'm advancing my ideas forward. I'm getting closer and closer to doing that. So that could mean kind of carving out just like 30 minutes every weekday to think about it, to write a draft, but really just kind of avoiding kind of the thinking about the final outcome or perfection and just focusing instead on how can I make progress? What's the next step? How can I make it easier to make that next step? How can I make it
mm,
more fun? What getting really clear on your on those steps and focusing on that and celebrating that progress and that momentum over time, like that's going to build up into just that sense that what you're working on is inevitable. Like it's going to happen. It's just you're not doubting yourself anymore. You know it's going to get there. It may not get there exactly perfectly how you planned it, but it's going to happen, right?
mm.
And I think that's important because I mean for me, like I used to like be super hardcore planning out my day and my time and my ideal week and before kids and before the pandemic, like it's easy to do that, right? Like you can just like, okay, you know, even if you have a day job and to some degree you have some, and a lot of times you have some control over, okay, this hour I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna wake up early. I'll do this. You know, during lunch I'll do that, and you can get crazy with it. Kind of like in your last episode, you guys were talking about your different Excel sheets of like,
Yeah.
this is what I'm gonna do every 15, 30 minutes. Like, yeah, I used to be like that too,
Yeah.
and that's really awesome if you can be like that. But like when I had Hendrix, when I had our son, and I was working and I was trying to finish my PhD, and like things just get unpredictable and crazy. And so I was stuck in a lot of ways with my PhD and work and just my own fulfillment, just trying to focus on like the ideal, the perfect situation, like I kind of had it set up before. And so a lot of times, creative people, especially in our high achievers, it's like if I don't have 3 hours to work on this there's no point at all, right? Like just forget it. And then you just kind of just have this all or nothing mentality, and it just builds and builds and builds, and then the pressure's like feel so hard to get out of. But if you just focus on momentum, it's like, okay,
Yeah.
30 minutes, I'm gonna just get in there. I'm gonna put on my favorite music. I'm gonna sit down. I'm gonna write for 30 minutes, and just finding those little moments to make progress. Okay, I know my son's gonna take a nap. Sometimes he sleeps for an hour, sometimes 2 hours, sometimes 30 minutes, and it's annoying as hell. But like I know I can at least fit in something here, or like, and I'm gonna do that, and I'm just gonna do it again tomorrow. I'm gonna the night before I'm gonna think about, okay, tomorrow here's my opportunity, and just here's what I'm gonna do. Here's how I'm gonna get started on it. Okay, boom, let's go. So it's kind of a very long-winded answer, but
Yeah.
just
I think,
momentum and progress versus what does my grand vision look like?
yeah, I like how you phrase with finding your rhythm.
Yeah.
We have a little bit of a jam room at our house.
Oh,
So we
nice.
don't have like a TV. It's a very strange house, but we have this like room with just instruments. Our living room is just a bunch of instruments, keyboard,
Yeah.
guitar, drums, bongos and stuff, shakers. And we were jamming with some friends who are not trained musicians. They even bongos are a little foreign. And
Yeah.
we can't just jump into a song, right? You have one method I found out was let's start super slow.
Oh, yeah.
Bum, 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 and just hit that rhythm. And after 5-10 minutes of just hitting that, it evolves and complexifies and gets way
Yeah.
faster and slower. And there's something about that with work. Can
Yep.
we start super slow and find the rhythm, even if it's 10 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever it is? I love the
Yeah.
idea of like
Mm-hmm.
lowering the threshold of what success is and finding that rhythm.
It's important.
It builds. It naturally builds. It's almost like the muse takes over and it just builds, goes quicker and harder and more creative the
Yeah.
longer it goes.
Yeah. No, that's a great example. Yeah. I mean, I think that's key, right? Is just make getting started as easy as possible, as enjoyable as possible, lower the expectations on that. Get started and give yourself some time, but just, yeah, just get into it. Just kind of
Yeah.
take the final outcome, that perfectionist mindset out of it, but just focus on getting that progress and getting that win and moving it forward more than it was when you started it, right? That could be simple as changing one word or changing 20 words or just whatever it is, like, and feeling good about that, because that's going to have that snowball kind of compounding effect, and you're going to get better and better at it. You're going to develop that skill of creating momentum and sustaining your momentum and getting unstuck if you can do that.
It's great. It's great advice. Well, we'll put your contact information in the intro and description stuff. People can
Cool.
reach out to you, and hopefully, this is helpful to all the listeners,
Yeah.
thousands of them.
Nice.
But also, it was a pleasure to talk and catch up,
Yeah, it
man.
was great talking with you, man. Yeah, hopefully it's helpful for people. And yeah, it was a great conversation. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. And yeah, let's stay in touch.